Hi everyone, my name's Tanishka and I just was feeling to speak about the recent passing of Eurydice Dixon. Now, this isn't something I came across in mainstream media. It was through seeing friends that had been disturbed by it, both men and women that were sharing in their Facebook news feed. And so, I Googled her name and I found out that she was a 22-year-old woman in Melbourne, my hometown. She was a stand-up comedian and that she had been raped and murdered on the way home. Now, having been a comedian when I was 24 in Melbourne, I walked home alone in the early hours often, okay? So there was certainly a sense of, for the grace of God, that could have been me. And I was raped twice, I was sexually assaulted, and having worked with women over the last 20 years, I have heard horror stories beyond belief of, the sexual assaults that are, commonplace, okay, in our culture, which doesn't have rites of passage to initiate men into learning how to understand and honor their own feminine so that they can be in right relationship with the feminine externally in women. So what strikes me even more is that her name, Eurydice, is mythic. So rather than focusing on the drama, okay, from the lower perspective of the lower three chakras, focusing on, who did what and who was wrong and who was to blame and retribution, that just builds the drama and it escalates the gender war. I would like to seed in the conversation about this the perspective that death is the ultimate teacher for all of us, because when somebody dies in our vicinity, in our community, everyone is untouched. We all are forced to question our relationship with death and therefore our relationship with life, our relationship with ourselves and each other. And so we do her a great disservice if we only focus on the drama, rather than really acknowledging as a soul that she knew exactly what she was doing on a higher level, okay, not necessarily on a personality level, to choose to exit in this way at this time. This time being the week leading up to Winter Solstice in Melbourne, in the Southern Hemisphere, and Melbourne is one of the darkest, coldest, wettest, gloomiest places one can spend Winter Solstice in the Southern Hemisphere, having journeyed that descent cycle many, many times. So ho to those of you that are. But in my book on Sacred Union, I speak about the myth of Eurydice and Orpheus and what the lesson of that she chose to embody, okay, in this earthly incarnation is Eurydice dies. And in her death, she initiates the men, she initiates the brothers into an underworld descent, okay? They are exposed to, what they've done, so to speak, whether that's collectively, personally, and it takes them down into confronting their own demons, their own shadow, their own unconscious thoughts, actions, behaviors. And so this is part of the remembering, if you will, of Orpheus. In the Egyptian mythology, it was Osiris, but a man who is not empowered is operating in a way that is trying to assert how masculine he is. And if he's unconscious, he will do that by showing how much he is not feminine, how much he can dominate the feminine within himself, within others. And this has been the status quo in the last 5,000 years since the Roman Empire outlawed feminine wisdom and the initiation rite of the Grail at Winter Solstice, which initiates men, midwives men through the dark night of the soul, through that underworld descent of Orpheus. So this year is an 11 year. This is a year of self-actualization. We're being turbo boosted to look at our shadow and to really transmute, to transform, to embody the whole being, one who sees their light and their dark equally and takes responsibility for all of it and is centered in the middle of that knowing and that understanding. So it came through that now is the time that we must resume those rites. And I know there are a lot of men doing puberty rites, which is wonderful. But the next rite, okay, for men is the Grail, which comes from the Grail, the Sangraal. It's about initiating men into being in right relationship with the feminine within themselves and within their sisters, their daughters, their mothers, and Mother Earth. And so I'm, delighted to say that I've been seeding this with a beautiful man, and we'll be starting in Melbourne next year. So this time next year, we'll be doing the Grail initiations for men and then alternating hemispheres. So this is what the Magdalens used to do. The Magdalene was the title for the high priestess. There were many Magdalens, okay? They taught the Sangraal mysteries, the sacred blood mysteries, which is honouring how the seasonal wheel, the cycles, initiate us to grow psychologically and emotionally. And winter solstice is the time when we really see the shadow masculine, because men are governed by the solar principle, yeah? The sun is like men's power pack. So as the solar light wanes from autumn equinox right down to winter solstice, the darkest day, we see the shadow masculine, we see the effect of it, and it can really bring up grief, rage, despair, overwhelm, depression. This can cause men to suicide, or to spiral into injury, illness. They feel so weak, so powerless, so vulnerable, and yet we're in a culture, a patriarchal culture, that says that is a sign of weakness, it's unacceptable, you're unlovable, you're disposable, you're not worth anything if you embody those traits. But it's those traits that actually help make a man whole, because it's only when a man has been to the bottom of the world, when he has gone to the belly of the whale, to that dark cave within our psyche, that he will experience the second birth, the soul rebirth. He will either have an ego death or a physical death. So this is why we need the mystic teachings of the sacred feminine to initiate our menfolk. And without that, men are not psychologically and emotionally prepared to be true husbands. In the old sense of the word, husbandry is about, being able to midwife the cycles. So, if we think about husbandry with animals, it's assisting life to prevail, assisting the cycles to grow, whether that's, fertilizing your granadilla vine, or, manually, or helping a cow to birth. But that's true husbandry. And so in the ancient world, our ancestors collectively lived close to the cycles of the earth. They understood that they initiated us through our lessons so that we could become a man for all seasons or a woman for all seasons. So we wouldn't just trade a spouse in because she was getting old. We would grow internally and develop the traits so that we could honor the traits in our beloved as they changed from, spring to summer to autumn to winter in their chronological journey. Just on that, I have just finished teaching a women's rites of passage facilitator training, and that will be coming out as an online course in November. So if you're interested in that, you can join my free Astro Oracle for an update when that's ready. And you just go to themoonwoman.com to subscribe. So getting back to the lesson of Eurydice and Orpheus, it is symbolic, it is inevitable, it is universal, universe, one verse, one story. We are all living the same myth. It just plays out in different ways. And it is inevitable that a woman will cross a man's path who shows him the promise of true love, and then she disappears from his life. So that may be a breakup, it may be a death, but the point is he is left on this precipice feeling that he is only half without her. And this precipitates the fall. That's why autumn is known in America as the fall, the descent down into the belly, into the cosmic womb of the Great Mother, into the gestation of winter. So, that causes a man to question himself. It's like, wasn't I enough for her? He feels emasculated that she didn't choose him, or, and so he bargains with God, as we all do when we lose something that we greatly desire in our ego self. I'll do anything. And so he goes to the underworld, in a sense, to sacrifice himself. And he is told that he can have Eurydice if he can return from the underworld but not look back. So if he looks back, if he yearns for her, if he's like operating out of need, I won't be whole unless I have her. She's the one. I've got to have her. I'll never meet anyone else like her. If he stays in need, in addiction, in boy, in dependency, which is the old paradigm of interpersonal relationship, where we meet in the bottom three chakras, and, we're not in the heart, we're not in the mother-father archetypes, we're not in the adult-to-adult style of relating. We're looking for someone to parent us, someone to mother us, someone to father us. And what happens when we're in that level of codependency, we re-wound each other and we spiral down. Whereas the tantric model of partnership is where, at the end of the honeymoon season, where, we can no longer, hold up this ideal of what we're projecting on the person as, you are the one, you're the one I've been looking for, the one who I will be with for eternity, the one who will rescue me from my pain and misery. If we're in that, then we are not sacred and sovereign. We are not a sovereign. We are not a king or a queen. We are looking to be completed. For the next level of partnership, which is what we are here to do at this time on this planet, in order to midwife the shift into the new consciousness, the new earth, is to become whole, to become kings and queens, which is one who is centered in the heart, The archetypes of mother, father are, when we take full responsibility for our childhood wounds, so that we're not re-inflicting those wounds on a partner. And then what happens in relationship, when we get to that threshold where we see the shadow in the other, we can't continue to operate in this bubble of, oh, they're the best thing that's ever happened to me, they have no faults. Then instead of that being the end of the relationship and the beginning of hell, where, you start dumping your crap on each other and scapegoating it so that you don't have to look at your own shadow, you've got someone to blame instead for your misery and your suffering. What we do is when we're triggered, we pull apart and we look at what that's brought up in us, and we question ourselves. How is this a gift? How is this a blessing? How is this showing me something I've disowned that I need to own in myself? And we do our own healing journey with that. We follow the signs synchronistically, and we journal, we do EFT, we do, whatever. It's going to look different for every person, so that then we can come back to our beloved and share what we've learned about ourselves and be so grateful for them as our mirror and our teacher. So this is the new paradigm of relating. This is why in the ancient tantric traditions, they would slice an apple open, horizontally, showing the 5-pointed star, the symbol of sacred feminine wisdom. It is not demonic. It is the shape that Venus makes as she moves through the cosmos. And they understood without feminine wisdom to initiate them into the teachings of the shadow, they would not be able to create anything on a cyclic basis. Yeah, they would destroy what they were trying to create. So this is why it is time to reinstate the cyclic mysteries that were so much a part of the ancient world, so that we can create social sustainability, relationships, families, communities that have safe group dynamics, that are inclusive, that are conscious, that have, inbuilt conflict resolution, because each person grows up learning how to take responsibility for their own shadow instead of projecting it. I digress. Getting back to Eurydice and Orpheus. So what happens in the myth is that Orpheus, he doesn't trust that if he looks after his own needs, if he continues with his journey to become whole, integrating the feminine within himself, his other half, his inner lover, if he doesn't do that, if he looks back, is she coming, I want her, he will lose her forever. And in the myth, he does. So the lesson right now to all the brothers, particularly those of you who are hurting, those of you who are overwhelmed at your shadow, at the shadow masculine, and a call to the sisters as well to not, carry your pitchforks and your torches and vilify and crucify your brothers. Open your compassionate heart to their suffering, knowing that love is what is going to heal us all. And ask to be a vessel. Ask to be, the voice of love, of true love, which is compassionate, which is inclusive, which is honoring of differences, of truth, rather than seeking to scapegoat and judge, which is going into the mind. It's not in the heart. To those of you who are journeying the depths of the underworld right now, this is the most important few days, of your whole year, because the thoughts that you have now are seeding the trajectory for the next 12 months. Just as the trees, withdraw their sap, they draw it deep within. The energy, it's quiet if you go outside in winter. Everything is deep within the earth. And so are we at this time. So you might feel like Superman without his kryptonite, because the solar light is so diminished that your solar plexus, your inner sun, is completely diminished. And this will be true of masculine-dominated women as well. If you define yourself by what you do, how much you earn, you will also find this an excruciating time of year. The more we develop our feminine traits, the more we can move through this time of gestation with grace. With consciousness. So the more shadow work that you're doing, the more that you're looking at what are the parts of me that I've judged, that I've disowned, that I see as unlovable and unacceptable. And when you can face those and say, I am that. That is the I am presence. We are everything. We are potentially a murderer. We are potentially a god and a goddess. And our challenge is to see all of it within ourselves. Given the right circumstances, we are all of those potentials. So we are a danger to ourselves and each other only when we don't acknowledge that possibility. So our work, is to journey to both polarities, to see the extreme shadow in ourselves in the lead up to Winter Solstice, and to see the extreme light in ourselves in the lead up to the Summer Solstice. This is how the mother, Gaia, the Earth Mother, initiates her children to grow. So, I hope that these teachings are insightful for you. If you feel like you want another bite of the apple, yes, I need truth, then check out my books, the Sacred Union books, which are on my website, themoonwoman.com. If you're interested, to the brothers in being initiated through this underworld descent down into birthing the king archetype within you, one who is sacred and sovereign, one who is whole, one who is ready to be in right relationship with his queen, whether that's, you know, a male or a female, doesn't matter. You know, we're all female masculine energies, but you know, it's time for us to do this, and this is a catalyst. So bless the soul of Eurydice Dixon, that knew exactly what she was doing in initiating her brothers, in initiating the men, because she loved you so much. Yeah, that she was calling for you to look at the masculine, to look at, is this what it is to be male, to have that conversation, and for us to not just talk, but to take right action, because that is the sacred masculine. The sacred masculine leads from the heart. He doesn't just go into pontificating, you know, about the mind. He takes right action by coming from a place of what would love do? How would love respond to this? Starting with self-love. So, you know, this is the time on the seasonal wheel when men, you know, makes me want to cry. They're as fragile as a newborn baby. They're embryonic, which is why, you know, if you go to Bridget's Isles, if you go to the Celtic lands, which is my indigenous roots, you will see barrows built. These are man-made caves. And these were not burial chambers, as we're told when we visit there. These were the incubation womb chambers for men to do their midwinter stag night, their Grail, their Yule, death and rebirth incubation. And so if you want to know more, there's also, I've done a video of my Grail talk, which is on my website, themoonwoman.com. You can check that out if you haven't seen me do it live. I'll be in Europe April, May next year doing those talks live and initiating both men and women. So yeah, I'd love to hear your comments after this video. If it resonates with you, please, you know, shed the light of truth for those that are really in the dark, because this is a time when the critical mind, it can attack us from within to the point where the darkness prevails, the darkness wins, and it wins only if we don't have that spark of inspiration in spirit, if we don't have hope that, you know, the light will prevail. So this is a great time, if you have sons, to sit down and watch quest dramas with them, like Star Wars. I'm trying to think of others. There's many others, you know, Lord of the Rings, but you know, Hercules, the animated film of Hercules is a great one. But, you know, giving them archetypal heroes' journeys to watch, to say to them, the days will lighten again. You will start to feel brighter, more optimistic, more, you have more belief in yourself. So go gently with your sons, go gently with your partners, go gently with your husbands. Don't berate them to fix things around the house. Give them the space. Encourage them to feel, to grieve. Encourage them to dance out their pain rather than doing something reckless and impulsive. This is a time when they are needing to just be held energetically by the sisters all around the planet with compassion, so that they, and holding a belief. This is where this is so important, holding a belief that the sacred masculine is rising, that, oh, it makes me want to cry. That we are going to be witnessing the resurrection of the masculine. Right now, it's time. And, you know, this generation of men and the next generation of men, they don't want to be Darth Vader, the Dark Father. They are looking, they are desperately looking for a new way. And the way we can support them in that is to hold the blueprint, to affirm with all of our heart, to see it happening as a gratitude practice every morning from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock, the time when the electromagnetic field on the Earth Mother is strongest. This is the time when our prayers have the most impact, to be praying for the masculine, to be seeing them rise rather than cutting them down with judgment. So may we feel it all, because unless we go to the pits of hell and feel the depths of our pain, the depths of our grief, the depths of our rage, we can't access the other polarity of rapture, of bliss, of sublime ecstasy. This is our human experience. We go equally in both directions. But if we don't want to feel those darker emotions, we stay grey. We stay repressed, suppressed, and depressed, because we're not allowing the energy, the Shakti, to move, so that through the chaos of feeling we are rebirthed. Like that beautiful spiritual wade in the water, God's going to trouble the water, and so will the goddess. We got to feel it. We got to feel it all. It's through feeling it that we are changed. So take it to the dance floor. If every night in Melbourne there is a dance happening, and I'm talking about sacred dance as medicine, shamanic dance, 5 rhythms, elemental dance, open floor. There's so many safe spaces to go and allow your body to move the emotion, the energy in motion, whatever unexpressed emotions your body is holding. Take it and sweat your prayers and move that energy, knowing that you are doing it not just for you but for the collective, and set them as prayers. Every time that you as the shaman go to that dance, that you set clear prayers, knowing that energy will follow your intention, that you will help heal the collective, midwife the collective, because we're all in this together. We are doing this together. We heal together. We grow together. So, blessings on your solstice. May the light of truth set your mind free so that your heart may lead the way. Blessings.